Hey everybody, what's up? Dingo Niner here. I was reading the Steam forums and there's a somewhat old thread about people trying to get their lights to come on at night, go off in the daytime, and they were doing it with scripts. Someone asked if it could be done without scripts, and there was a solution suggested that involved some rotors or some pistons. I play on Panda's Hardcore Survival server. It's a 111 server. Great server, by the way. You should come check us out. And they don't allow scripts there. So I can't use a script to do it, and you don't want to use rotors and pistons and things like that on a multiplayer server, at least not for now. But there is a way to do this using only timer blocks and eventually a connector, and I'll explain that in a second here. But let me just show you the setup here that I use to control my lights. They'll go on at night and go off in the daytime. I use 3 timers. I'll just go over these timers real quickly. This green one is the daytime timer. I call it the lights on timer. And the only thing it does is it turns the lights on. I've got a light up here that we're going to use for this demonstration. So the green timer, the daytime timer, the lights on timer, all it does is turn the lights on. This timer does 2 things. It turns the light off and it interrupts this timer. So I've got the daytime timer on a 5-second delay, and I'll go ahead and set that up right now. I'm going to set the daytime lights on timer. I'm going to set it for 5 seconds. So in 5 seconds it will turn the lights on. And so I've got, I think I've called it, what do they call this thing? Sensor light. So all it does is it turns that light on after 5 seconds. And that's the entire function of this timer. Turn that light on after 5 seconds. The nighttime timer is set for a 1-second delay. And the nighttime timer is set up to turn that light off. So we'll go ahead and turn this light off and stop the daytime timer from turning it back on again. So which timer is it? It is the lights on, this one. And stop that timer. All right. And those are the 2 timers that compete with each other for control of that light. This controller, all it does is every 15 seconds it fires off these 2 timers, and that's all it does. So I'll go ahead and take this thing and I'm going to set it for 15 seconds, and its setup is going to be just fire off both of these timers. The lights off timer, start it. The lights on timer, start it. And it also has to start itself so that it resets and does this every 15 seconds. So then start yourself. All right. And so if this works, then when I fire off this control timer, this white timer, it's going to count to 15 and it's going to fire off both of these. 1 second later, this one will turn that light off and this one will stop that one from turning it on. So let's go ahead and try that. I'm just going to start this timer. Start, and we'll see it counting. It should count to 15 and you should see both of these come on. 1 second later that light will go off and this one will stop counting down. So let's see that happen. There it goes, interrupt, turn the light off. Alright, so every 15 seconds this one is going to turn that light off and interrupt that one from turning it on. And that's how you turn the lights off in the daytime. There it is, there's the interrupt and the light went off. So that's how the lights go off in the daytime. Now at nighttime, if we could take this thing, let's just turn this one off for now. So I'm going to toggle this block off. And so now what happens is that gets fired, these both get fired, this one doesn't respond, therefore this one does not interrupt that one, and the lights come on. So as long as there's no power to this timer, the lights on timer won't get interrupted, and the lights will come on every 15 seconds. There it is counting down, or 5, yeah. 5, and the light went on. So let me turn the power back on to this one, and so now this interrupt is going to take place. The lights just went off, and that got interrupted. All right? And so all we need to do now is arrange for this timer to not have power when it's dark out. Sounds like a solar panel issue. So what we're going to do is we're going to hook this timer up to a solar panel to provide its power. Now the issue that we have here is how can we power that timer on a solar panel not on the main grid, but also have it be seen by the controller timer so that it can be fired off to interrupt the daytime timer. So they all have to see each other, but this one can't be powered by the same grid as this one. And so that's what we're going to do next. Okay, so let's get this timer off of the power grid and still arranged so that it can see the other timers and they can all communicate with each other. And the way we do that is through a connector. So I'm going to get rid of this, and over the bank here I've built a little contraption that I want to go over with you. So I basically have two connectors here, and so here is our new lights off timer. It's on the grid right now, it's powered, it can see the other timers, and so it can interrupt the daytime timer when it has to. The controller timer can fire it off, and it can interrupt the daytime timer. The only issue that we have is when the solar panel, when the sun goes down and the solar panel is no longer powering this, it's still going to be powered through this connector. So the nighttime timer needs to do one more thing. It needs to interrupt, it needs to turn the light off, then it needs to interrupt the daytime timer, and then it needs to disconnect from the grid, so that eventually when the sun goes down, it loses power. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's set this up. It's going to be a 1 second delay, and the functions are turn the light off. Oh, I've already got it done. Alright, looks like I got ahead of myself. So it turns the light off, it interrupts the lights on timer, and then it gets itself off the grid. Alright? And so now the controller timer has to put it back on the grid before it tries to control it, right? So under the controller timer, we're going to change this setup a little bit. It's still, well, let's make it a 15-second delay. And set up actions. And now it needs to first turn on the connection, or lock the connection with the off-grid timer. Then it needs to fire that timer. So lights off, fire that timer, and it needs to fire the lights on timer, and then it needs to fire itself again. And that's it. That's how you do it. And so now if I run this, we will see, I'm going to go ahead and run it, and we're going to run over the bank here in 15 seconds and watch what happens over here. So come down here, there's the connection. You'll see that it fires that timer. Get her done. And then that timer turned the lights off and disconnected. So it's no longer on the grid. Alright? And it just, I mean, obviously I don't need to show this to you, but I will. You can see that it's not on the grid anymore. It just came on the grid, it turned off the lights, and it got itself back off the grid. So what's happening is the controller up here is connecting, firing off that timer. That timer is interrupting that one, turning the lights off, and disconnecting. There it goes. Alright? And so now when it gets dark out, this will lose power, and since it's not connected, it's not going to draw power through the connectors, and it'll be off the grid permanently. Well, all night. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's just make it dark out. Admin tools, and we're going to make it pitch dark, and you'll see that this is going to lose power now. Alright, so still got a little bit of power here. There it goes, lost power. So now that it lost power, the controller grid can't make the connection to it, and so that timer can't be fired, this one can't be interrupted, and the lights come on. And that's all there is to it. And I'll make it light again just to show you that. So again, it tries to connect through the connector, but there's no power. It can't connect. That timer can't interrupt this timer. This timer turns the lights on. So let's go make it light out. Alt F10. And we'll give it some nice bright daylight. Now there's power. Okay. And so the connector the connection will be made. The lights off timer will turn the light off, interrupt that one, and the lights go off. And there it is. And that is all there is to it. So I just want to go over a couple of things here quickly. A quick review of it. The daytime timer, all it does is turn that light on. The nighttime timer has to do a few things. It turns the light off, it interrupts the daytime timer, and it gets itself off the grid, disconnects from that connector. And then finally there's the controller, and the controller connects on the grid, gets that thing back on the grid with the connector, fires off that timer, and fires off that timer. And then that's all there is to it. Now, a couple of things that I want to go over with you quickly is, I've got this timer set for 15 seconds. You probably don't want to do that, especially on a, heavily populated multiplayer server, etc. You don't need this thing going every 15 seconds. I would say 15 minutes, and then within 15 minutes after sunset, the lights will come on. The other thing that you have to do is you have to place this thing properly. It can get pretty darn dark. If that solar panel is right there, it could get pretty dark before that solar panel will stop generating power. So you might want to think about placement of your solar panel, maybe put it behind the building. You could maybe build some things in front of it, put some blocks in front of it. Just experiment, try to get the timer to lose power. Try to get that timer to lose power at the right time of day for you. And that's it. I also want to show you, I'll show you my design real quick. And I'll show you my placement and what I actually have going on here in my creative world. I actually haven't built this over on the 111 server yet, the survival server, but I'll probably do that tonight right after I get done with this. So my timers and my solar panels are on the back of my building. So here's my situation here. I've got my control timer, I've got my daytime timer, and I've got my night timer. I have another timer here because I might want to control multiple lights. I might want to do other things as well based on day or night, not just turn lights on and off. So there it is. You can see the connector underneath, and you can see that right now, since it's daytime, my control timer is ticking off. I've got it set for 15 seconds. I'll change it to 15 minutes when I get done with this video. But there it is, fires, connected, disconnected. And that's what's keeping the lights off. Okay? I'll show you the lights that I have connected to it. I have a little greenhouse in here. Incidentally, if this is boring you, there isn't any more instructions in this video. Feel free to stop it. I'm just going to demonstrate my actual working copy here. So you can see it out the window. You can see that my timer, my lights off timer is powered by the solar panel. And I think this is just about the right placement for me as far as the sun going up and down. Let me go ahead and make it dark, and I'll show you what happens here. So we're going to go to Admin Tools. I'm going to make it pitch dark, and you're going to see that timer lose power, and when it does, this is my greenhouse. So very shortly you should see lights come on. You should see lights come on. Come on. I suspect my solar panel still has a little bit of power in it. Let me go up and see. Oh, I know what I did. Look at this. For the duration of my my video, I didn't want my lights to come on even if it got dark. So I actually have a direct connection between these two things. There you go. Now the power's off. And so now in 15 seconds my lights come on. Alright, and so that's all there is to it. And you can have, with a timer you can have up to 90 lights, right? So you should be able to handle as much of this as you want to. And if you need another 90, just add another daytime timer and another nighttime timer. You can have as many of these things going as you want. Daytime, powered on, and so my light should go off in 15 seconds. And there they go. They're off. Alright, if you have any questions, just hop in that forum, look for that thread. It's kind of recent right now because I made some posts on it. I'll be happy to help you out. Thanks.